Success. I hope I learned some secrets while I'm being able to moderate. My name is Warren Valentine. I'm a nationally syndicated radio host. I'm also an attorney. And I'm also doing what's called the People's Economic Movement right now to try to change our communities across the country. We have a wonderful panel up here, and what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I probably wouldn't do the right justice by them that they deserve. I'm friends with a couple of people up here, other people I'm meeting for the first time, but I'm very excited to have everybody here. So let's start off with Michelle, right here, Michelle Singletary.
Hey everybody, I'm Michelle Singletary. I write a syndicated column for the Washington Post called The Color of Money, and probably the only other thing is I just released a book not too long ago called The Power to Prosper, 21 Days to Financial Freedom, and it's based on a financial fast, a 21-day fast where you can't spend any money on anything that is not a necessity, which of course all of you could do in a heartbeat, right? Yes.
Good afternoon, I'm John Hope Bryant. I'm the founder, chairman, CEO of Operation Hope, which is a global leader in financial dignity. We have served 1.5 million people. We're in 72 communities in America, all underserved. We're the largest urban delivery system on the ground for financial literacy empowerment in the country. We've directed $1.1 billion of investment to America's inner cities over 19 years, including the entrepreneur who made the suit that I'm wearing today. And I'm sorry. I've been talking all day, so my voice is a little hard to grasp me. People don't normally say they can't hear me. My apologies. You heard all of me. You guys got the gist of what I just said. And I wrote a book called Love, Leadership, and New Way to Lead in a Fear-Based World, which was one of the top 10 business books for last year. And lastly, I'm an advisor to President Obama, as I was to Clinton and Bush on financial literacy and power issues, which I call civil rights, to make free enterprise and capitalism work for the poor. And I'm honored to be here. God bless you. This is a bad system.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I bring you greetings from Pentecostal for Women, the oasis where we educate and celebrate women and develop them into 21st century leaders and global thinkers. I'm Dr. Julianne Malveaux, 15th President of Better College for Women, and I am delighted to be here. Want to thank April for putting us together. And also, I'm delighted to be with this esteemed group of folks, most of whom I know from some other crossroads in life. In addition to being the president of Better College for Women, I am a syndicated columnist within NPA. I am also an economist, a labor economist who studies labor markets and also just basically what the economy is about. My most recent book is called Surviving and Thriving, 365 Facts in Black Economic History, in which I argue that African American people, although kept on the periphery, have always been central to our nation's economy.
Good afternoon, my name is Harriet Freeman and I'm owner of H.E. Freeman Enterprises, which is a financial consulting company. I help clients get out of debt and increase their credit score as well as develop good spending habits. I'm also the author of How to Get Out of Debt, Get an A credit rating for free, and I also do financial literacy speaking to children as well as adults. And the main thing that I try to get my clients to understand is that they need to know how much they earn, how much they spend, and how much they owe. So many times people go out, they don't know how much they earn, they don't know how much money they spend, and if you don't have accountability for your spending, you can't improve your financial life.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Eddie Brown, founder, CEO, president of the second oldest African-American owned investment management firm in the world, Brown Capital Management. And I'm aspiring to do what John Hope Bryant has done, and that is to have a top 10 best-selling book. I have the book out. It's Beating the Odds. There are about 20 books with that title, so you have to go down to the subtitle when you go to Amazon.com. Eddie Brown's Investing and Life Strategies came out in May, and I'm going to track John and try to get it to be a top 10 book. But my day job, we manage a little over $4 billion of other people's money.
I want to track you.
And a little of our own. We do some very large clients, but we also have mutual funds that are open to the general.
Can everybody just stop for a minute? 40 years from Dr. King, I Have a Dream, and we can even go in the bathroom. Wait a minute, my brother just said he manages $4 billion.
But, we've been in the trenches for over 28 years, doing it very well. We have two of the top performing mutual funds in the United States, the Brown Capital Small Company Fund, the Brown Capital Mid Cap Fund, that's available to people with smaller sums than our minimum $5 billion separate account minimum for private accounts. So, that's me.
That's pretty impressive, that's me. Let's go to Omarosa. Omarosa, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Omarosa Manigal, and I am a proud professor at the Howard University School of Business, where I teach branding and marketing in our MBA program. I am also very proud to announce that we are the first historically black college to have an executive MBA program. And it is a program that's completely online, where you don't have to give up your job to get an MBA. And so thus we're providing an opportunity for professionals to advance their education. I also have a partnership with Donald Trump through Trump Productions. You may be seeing our most popular show on TV1, which is called The Ultimate Merger. And also we have maybe 2 or 3 programs that you will be seeing thus forth. I also was on a show called The Apprentice, and I continue to do reality television programs throughout the world, and I am on my 35th. But prior to that, I worked in the White House for 4 years, where I was Deputy Associate Director of Presidential Personnel. And before that, I worked for Bill and Camille Cosby at their National Visionary Leadership Project, overseeing their educational fund. And prior to that, my background is in corporate real estate. Oh, and I have a book called The Bitch Switch. You know it was going to be provocative if it came from me. I couldn't call it Self-Esteem for Women. Y'all wouldn't buy it, but I called it The Bitch Switch. Knowing How to Turn It On, Turn It Off is an award-winning book. We all aren't buying it. It's the white women are lining up around the block to get the kind of attitude that we sisters have and how to effectively use it. And I did a second book with my mother. This is one of my love projects. My mother is an artist, and I wanted to give her an opportunity to show her art to the world. So for the last year, I've gotten a chance to work with my loving mother to publish her book, and that's my passion project.
All right, give a round of applause for this panel. I think the proper place to start with this is understanding money. I know that, Michelle, this is something that you've been advocating forever. Understanding and saving our money. Why is it so hard for us to understand budgeting and by necessity instead of want?
Well, when you say us, you mean just black folks or America?
I'm going to say America. I don't want to just classify it as black folks. There's other folks spending money racistly too.
I think that there's lots of pressure for all of us to spend our money. I mean, you turn on TV, the radio, wherever you go, there's lots of pressure for you to spend, buy, upgrade. I mean, iPad 2s and, all kinds of things, right? Right. So I think...
She's always right.
There's lots of pressure to keep up and keep spending. And we keep hearing that the economy won't succeed unless we become even more consumers. And so there's just pressure, and people can't resist that pressure. We do it ourselves. We give into our kids' demands, and we have kids from 10 and 12 with cell phones. They don't have a job. They have a cell phone. And so that's what it is. And I mean, it's really hard to fight that. And people just can't, they don't prioritize where they want their money to go.
Let me bring John in on this conversation. John, she just said something very important. She said these young kids that have cell phones and that prioritizing where the money should go. And I hear this all the time, well, I can't invest any money because I don't have any money to invest. And I always say, well, if you have a cell phone or cable, I'm going to just tell you personally something personal to me. I had every channel cable had. And my cable bill was $400 a month. And I was home 3 days out of the month. 3 days. So I started going through my budget. I was like, what do I do with it? So I got basic cable. As long as I got ESPN, I'm good. So, John, how early should we start talking about investing with our children? And And how do we invest? A lot of us just don't know how to invest.
The reason I'm hesitating is that you've asked a mouthful. And you really didn't ask one question. You asked about 200 years worth of questions. This is not about money. What people don't understand is money's emotion. Money is also aspiration. Money ties into your self-esteem directly, like you plug something in a wall. So when I was growing up in Compton, California, in South Central LA, Andrew Young, Pastor Andrew, my mentor, says that men fail for 3 reasons: arrogance, pride, and greed. That's not a lack of financial literacy. That's not a lack of knowledge. Everybody in here knows somebody who's in financial trouble, right? I'm sorry, I'm not talking to myself. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
So, and by the way, we need to be able to have this conversation, to be able to say that without the shame. That's the other problem. Half of those in foreclosure today never called their lender. It wasn't that the lender gave you a bad answer. We just never called. That's shame. We're ashamed to admit that we don't get it. And we think if we keep driving the car to work, the car we can't afford, the payments which we are behind on, if we keep going to work, if we keep going shopping, keep going to restaurants, that this will just go away. The story will change, the page will turn. This is not a soap opera, it's not a movie, it's your life. And just because you don't open the mail doesn't mean the mail's not opening you. So part of this is shame, which ties into low self-esteem. And so when I was growing up, I remember my mother teaching me there's a difference between being broke and being poor. That being broke is economic, but being poor is a disabling frame of mind and a depressed condition of your spirit, and you must vow never to be poor again. Or to translate it into spiritual talk, my pastor, who I play Father Reverend Murray, would say, it's not what people call you, it's what you answer to that's important. And never answer out of your name. We've been answering out of our name for a very long time. And to argue with a fool proves there are two. We've been arguing with fools for a very long time. I just look at people like they're crazy. I don't get it. I just look at you like you're nuts and keep on moving. But most people can't do that. They feel they want to be liked, or like me, don't like me, that's fine. Respect me, learn to like me, versus liking me and then hopefully respecting me. So we are a people who are more poor than we are broke. And so that's why when you measure financial literacy, most of these things say that financial literacy doesn't work. Because it's left brain, left brain. It's like going to a math class. You want to put a kid to sleep, give him a financial literacy course. Nobody wants a mortgage, they want to become a homeowner.
Right.
Nobody wants a mortgage and say, ooh, give me a subprime 20% interest mortgage with 20 points. Nobody in their right mind does that. Nobody wants a car loan. Ooh, give me one of those red 15% interest car loans. They want a cool car. Nobody wants an education, really, other than academic. They want aspiration. They want to be successful. So we've disconnected education from aspiration. We've disconnected self-esteem, self-worth, and self-love from the conversation of getting rich. In fact, we should be talking about wealth and not riches. Because wealth is inside out, but riches is outside on. And if your assets are on your ass, you've already got another problem. So I don't have a problem with the cell phone. Because when I go to Africa, which I was there 2 weeks ago, we have an office there, everybody's got cell phones. It's actually a good sign. I mean, Africa will probably be the first wireless continent. And by the way, based on what I'm seeing in South Africa, we have been, for the last 50 years, the richest, most well-educated, most well-prepared group of black people on the planet, African Americans in North America. That is not guaranteed. You go to South Africa, and your mouth will drop. These folks are taking no prisoners. And it makes you proud, if not for making us sad about our own plight. So I think it's how they're using that cell phone. They may not have running water. They may not have a paved road. But they are hustling from KC in the morning to KC at night. There is no welfare. So I think that are really suggesting this is a larger issue. While we can't keep getting our hands around it, it's a larger issue. When I teach financial literacy, I do two things. One, I first teach a course in dignity. Because wealth is inside out, not outside only. Number two, I make sure a volunteer goes in that classroom and looks like her, or looks like you, or looks like him, suited and booted. Quincy Jones says it takes 20 years to change a culture. In the last 20 years, we've made dumb sexy. We've dumbed down and celebrated. And now we've got to make smart sexy again. So when the little girl sees you, yeah, you're talking about financial literacy and telling her the language of money. I call it the language of money, by the way, not financial literacy. And I'm now calling it financial dignity and not even financial literacy. Even though Operation Hope got the president to sign an executive order making financial literacy U.S. policy, I've now thrown away my own term. I don't believe it illustrates it enough. I think right brain, left brain is financial dignity. Well, that little girl is, yes, she's getting that course, but by the second 1 hour session, the little girl's saying, I can be you. The minute the little girl says, the endorphins start firing, and she says, I can be you, you've eradicated poverty. I'm not sure if that translated perfectly. The minute the young black man sees you in a suit with a business card, and the little brother says, damn, I can be you. How'd you get rich legally? Because last point, our kids want to be rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers.
You know, I think I'm also one of ways in.
Let me just finish my sentence. I know I don't speak any more of this panel. It's fine. Let me just. I said all I want to say. But that little kid wants to be a rap star, athlete, and drug. You go do a survey in our urban America. Rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers. I used to believe that I grew up in the hood, that kid was dumb and stupid. Now I realize that kid's brilliant. Because that kid is modeling what he sees. This is what tells me we can solve this problem. Give the kids something different to see.
I was actually going to really stress on the point that you said about financial literacy. I'll stick to the term that you all taught in my class. When I had Operation Hope and John's team came to Howard University, you would think these MBA students wouldn't have an epiphany. When I first told them that they were coming, they grumbled. We don't need that. We're MBA candidates. Yet our session lasted, I think, 5 hours. The students couldn't get enough because it occurred to them that they would be graduating into debt if they didn't pay attention to what was being taught. And these were some really basic principles. So if there was a way, and I know that you all are doing that, and I'm teaming up with you all to do that, to take that program and make it available, because folks aren't seeking it out, but throughout our communities, whether it's in churches, whether it's in elementary schools, junior high schools, even my students had more questions and more questions and more questions, and I referred them to the Hope Centers, because it starts with educating yourselves and re-educating yourselves about how we think about money. I made a point in my book and on The Apprentice that we as black folk don't talk about salaries. We won't say to you, well, how much did you make? How much is your salary? Because you're not going to tell me, but I'm going to tell you there's a different culture, because the white was like, well, when I worked in that position, I got $75,000. You should ask him for a bump and a membership to the club, because that's how they talk. They don't mind sharing that information, and so the lack of dissemination of information is really problematic in our communities, because we don't talk about what we make, right? We were taught to keep that to ourselves.
Well, you should keep your salary to yourself. You should talk about it.
No. I disagree. I disagree, because I'm teaching my students that before they go for that position, you need to know what the person before you was making, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about my point about my students being armed with information to make educated financial decisions, and they can do that by looking at this program that John has created, because it is so effective. And if you have a chance, and if you take nothing else, I'm actually endorsing that program, because my students were profoundly changed by the fact that they found out that they knew nothing about
So
money.
it's two things that we've gotten already, right? John brought up an excellent point. Show these children something else. And Alma also just brought up a great point. Let's have an open discussion about what we want when we're talking about financial literacy.
Your kids think that your lights come on all by themselves. Your kids think the lights come on by themselves, the phone works. I mean, you disconnect the phone. Watch. Mama, what's wrong with this phone? The kids think that the internet is part of the computer. If there's no internet, they don't think the computer's working. These are presumptions and based on entitlement. I hate to say it. We have a whole entitlement generation. People just expect things to be the way they are. Where you are, you work. You hustle.
Before we go any further, I got to introduce my president. He's the president of the National Urban League. He's the former mayor of New Orleans, my friend, my mentor. Buck Royale, give him a round of applause. I want to bring Dr. Malvo in here because it's something very important. We're talking about the younger generation. You deal with and you help cultivate all these beautiful women at Bennett College who are going to be great leaders and scholars in this country. What's the most important thing you want them to get out of economic development when they're there?
Well, at Bennett, we require students to take an intro to entrepreneurship class. We have four foci in my administration: entrepreneurship, leadership, global studies, and communication. We got 4 new buildings in my 4 years as president. One is a new global learning center, where our entrepreneurship center and our Center for Global Studies are housed. So we want students to understand that they can be not only high achievers, they can bring the highest and best, their A to the game, which means that they must know that this economy will not always generate jobs for them. This economy right now, African American unemployment rate 29.3%. So not the 16.7 that you read about somewhere, but 29.3%. So if you understand that you have to use the ingenuity that is implicit to us as black people to create opportunities for yourself, because the culture of taking a job, having that job for 40 years, getting the gold watch when you finish the 40 years, that's over. That's finished. If you're lucky, you may have 5, 6, or 7 jobs in the course of your lifetime. If you're unlucky, you may have 10, 12, or 15 jobs plus periods of idleness. We were just in a session over at the Book Pavilion where a woman talked about the cap on public assistance is 5 years. Yep. After that, she will not get cash. And so if there has been a culture of dependency, I would argue that, but if there has been one, it's over. But people have to understand that they have to create opportunities for themselves. So the hustle thing that John pointed out in South Africa, the hustle thing that we see in other parts of the world, it's a hustle thing, clean hustle, not dirty hustle, clean hustle that we need to have. I'm going to ask my Bennett students to stand so you can see these lovely young women. One of them is the Student Government Association president, the senior class president, both of whom have traveled internationally. Herschel both to Ghana and to Copenhagen, accompanied me to COP15. Danielle to Ghana last fall actually. They spent an interesting semester in Ghana. And one of the things we say global studies, it's our goal to make sure that our women have exposure to the world. Because when you have exposure to the world, you see yourself very differently. As African American people, we like to think it began and ended here. But we have this little 400-year history that includes our history as enslaved people. But that's been sufficient and it minimizes it. Look at us from a global perspective, there's so much more. Warren, I want to locate myself somewhere in the middle of these two sisters about the salary business. I believe that, people in America will more readily tell you how many times they last had sex than they will have an open discussion about money. Yep. You can turn on the television and people say, and tell you what they did, how they did it, who they did it with, and in what position. That's too much information.
It's very interesting that you're bringing this up, and I'm saying this because one of the things that I talk about on the radio all the time is that if we see racism, we know exactly what to do in the black community. When we hear the word money, it's confusion everywhere.
Exactly. People walk up to me. People walk up to me and say really stupid stuff to me like, I flunked economics when I was in college. I'm like, that's not funny.
About that?
I don't understand interest rates. Well, go get you a book. I don't know what people say. You're in the comments and they come up to you and say really stupid stuff. And I'm always sitting there thinking, I'm supposed to be kinder and gentler because I'm a college president. But those who know me very well know I'm thinking, fool, get out of my face. Just a minute, Michelle, let me finish. Because you all were on two different sides of salary information. And I think it has to be a bit of both. What we find out, first of all, women and people of color are paid less. I will tell you a true personal story. I'll disguise a little bit. A relative of mine was working at a pension fund in Washington State. She was a number 3 person at that pension fund in Washington State. She was making less than probably a third of the people who reported to her. The only way she found out that she was making less is because of the administrative assistant who got mad at the director, who was a crazy man that used racial slurs all the time, left my relative the payroll of everybody on her desk.
Wow.
And so then she was able to see that literally she was making this white guy who reported to her was making $50,000 more than she was. And she sued. She got about 5 years pay. At some point she used her big sister card. Oh, I know who it was. Oh, I'm sorry. Turn that off the table. You know, my sister studies employment discrimination, and she could be an expert witness. Next thing you know, she had to sign some agreement, but she would tell me what the settlement was. I said, don't tell me, write on a piece of paper. So the information needs to be shared because that's the only way we learn about this discrimination. Into all your business, we have a culture of keep your business to yourself.
No, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. I mean, the idea is that you can't focus on individually what people make. Because my grandmother never made more than $13,000 a year, and yet she had more money when she retired than people I work with who make six-figure salaries. That's what I mean. This whole focus on what you make. You can make $100,000 and be broke, and make $20,000 and have a lot of money. That's what I mean. That when you talk about building wealth and financial education, it's how you make do with what you have wherever you are. Whether you're a teacher, I believe that you ought to operate in your gifts. So when we say things like everybody should be this, that's wrong. Some people are born to be teachers. What I like to do is teach you how to live on that teacher's salary so that you're not aspiring to spend more than your salary can do. That's what I
You know, I want to say this. I want to bring marketing on this conversation, and I want to bring marketing on this part of the conversation because one of the things that I'm hearing from everybody, and I think, Dr. Malvo, what you're doing at Bennett is unbelievable because whenever you start talking about entrepreneurship, that is something that we desperately need in our community, more so than anything else. We need to be having multiple streams of income, and I know the Urban League is at the forefront of creating entrepreneurship and pushing the government to give kids opportunities for jobs and other things to become young entrepreneurs.
Well, you know, first of all, it's just great to be here. I apologize for arriving late. I'm on the Department of Education's Equity Commission, and I had to be in the room, if you know what I mean, for that discussion, and it kind of got heated and hot in a very good way. But let me just say this, Warren, and to everyone, and it's just great to sit here and listen because I'm learning from all of you and your sharing. When I joined the National Urban League 8 years ago, we really didn't have a concerted effort around entrepreneurship. In that 8-year period, we have opened 9 entrepreneurship centers. These are one-stop shops that provide coaching, counseling, and free consulting services, if you will, to entrepreneurs in 9 communities. One is Philadelphia. Stand up, Pat. Patricia Coulter, the president of the Philadelphia Urban League, is here, and she runs the Philadelphia Entrepreneurship Center. Sitting next to us is J. Howard Henderson. J. Howard Henderson, president of the Baltimore Urban League, has worked for the last several years with Johns Hopkins University doing the minority business monitoring of their new developments in East Baltimore. At present, the National Urban League and its affiliates serve approximately 6,000 small businesses each and every year through centers that are funded with private dollars. Private dollars, not a dime of government work, dollars. Imagine what we could do if we had some support from the federal government. We could expand, indeed, what we do. One thing that is so important is to understand that in the last decade, the number of African American owned businesses has increased dramatically. The number of African American owned businesses has increased greater than that of mainstream businesses. That's good news. Secondly, the revenue increase for African American businesses has outpaced that of the mainstream. That is also good news. On the other hand, for African American owned businesses, only 10 to 15% have more than one employee. So many people, apropos to the hustle, are involved in entrepreneurship in addition to holding down a full-time job, in addition to doing a number of other things. We have to focus on, we have to concentrate on this. You know, it's interesting living in the Northeast because if you look, for example, at the Dunkin' Donuts franchise, and I don't know how many of you frequent those, I do from time to time. East Asians, Indian Americans, have a powerful footprint inside that franchise space. Why am I saying that? Because entrepreneurship also requires sacrifice. Long hours, being in love with a business, financial sacrifice, not because you own a business, you're going to live big or you're going to live high, and it takes a long time to do it. So we do have to continue to focus on entrepreneurship and continue to focus on building it. Just at the National Urban League, we just realized that as an organization that for 100 years has tried to help people find jobs, I said it's time for us to create some jobs. And one way to create jobs is to create businesses in our own community. The one thing we all need to do is we need to be much more conscious of where we spend our dollars. We have to be conscious to think about where we spend our dollars. And I think it's two rules. I think we ought to try to spend money with businesses that are in our community, African American owned, and I think we need to spend money with mainstream businesses that have a presence and a commitment to our community. We can vote with our dollars. Our spending power is nearing $1 trillion. I believe it would make us about 9th or 10th if we were an independent nation. We as a community are not broke. We as a community are not poor. We as a community have to get more wise and intelligent about how we harness our power as consumers to build. And so Warren has done something, I don't know if you've talked about it, and that is trying to generate more support for community-based and African American banks through savings accounts, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot that we can do.
They put over $1 million in one bank, and they're putting money in other banks. And next week, we're actually kicking off. I'm getting 30,000 listeners to make a pledge of $30 a month that they're going to put up, and we're going to take $900,000 a month and put it back into the communities that the station is in across the country, and put it back into the banks in the community, so that we can have money and capital to create entrepreneurship, to create home ownership, to create education. One of the things that to me that is deadly missing in this conversation as far as understanding money is the cost of education in this country. And Dr. Malvo, we've been on panels where you've heard me say this before, where these kids are getting so undereducated that even when they graduate from high school, that first year of college, they're just taking remedial classes and they're having to pay for it. They're getting an extra year of debt on them as they go through school. We look at what's going on in our community, and as Mark has said, and as John has said, and as many of you will agree, we're not poor in our community, we're just not focused. We're not focusing our money at all.
Let me talk a minute about this college cost thing, because I think it really is extremely important. I was looking at your column, Michelle, the other week. You told the people don't go in their retirement fund to pay for the students' college, and someone wrote a letter disagreeing with you. I think, again, it's something that has to be balanced, but here's what we know. Someone who goes to college and graduates from college will earn about $1 million more than someone who does not. Even one of the few things that you ought to spend money on. Now, you know, all these consumer goods, you need a new car. No, you don't need a new car. You want a new car. But you do need higher education. And so if you go into debt to finance your education, that's fine. What I want students to do is to go into debt prudently.
Right.
And when they have the so-called refund checks, at Fed we call them net loan proceeds, not refunds, because taking out a loan and getting money back is not a refund. There's something you have to pay back. So, you know, I've seen, not only at my campus, other campuses, young women who they're waiting for their refund check so they can go purchase clothes. Well, that's a poor use of dollars that you have to spend, pay interest on. Or, more tragically, in what's happening in our community, young women who take out more loan than they need to because their parents need money. And that is, the parents need to say, okay, let's draw a line here. So intergenerationally, there's some real challenges. But from a policy perspective, I really wonder why our young people pay 6% interest on their student loans, but large banks are paying 1% interest on their borrowing from the federal government. I really want to understand why, in the middle of a recession, and it is a recession, might be a double-dip recession, our young people are being challenged to pay their loans back 12 to 18 months after they graduate, but when the black unemployment rate is 30%, why we can't push that repayment period back to 2 years or even 3 years. I really want to figure out why we're looking at cutting student loan money, cutting Title III money, which comes in historically black colleges, and cutting other kinds of money when we know how vital these HBCUs are. Now, what you say is absolutely true about the students who come unprepared and underprepared, and part of that, as you said, has to do with the racism that exists in urban public education. True story. First year at Bennett, I don't get to do this anymore. I still do, but I don't do it that often. Man, a preacher came to my office with 3 girls in a pickup truck. He heard me say on television I could turn anybody into a scholar. That convinced me almost to stop talking. Because that mouth would get me into trouble every time. So he had 3 young ladies who wanted to come to college. Now, 2 of them had graduated, 1 disappeared. But one of the 2 girls had a 1.9 GPA. I said, how did you, I said, honey, how did you get, I mean, this to me defies logic. How did you get a 1.9? What did you do or not do? Anyway, she, asked her pastor to be excused, and her story was that the chemistry teacher at her Virginia public high school would fondle the girls as they left the room, so she stopped going to class. Now, she was very tripped. She said, I'll admit it, my sophomore year, I was a screw up. My mother remarried, and I was bad. Her dad died, and mother, she was mad. She said, when I complained, they told me that I was just a troublemaker. She said, I just stopped going to class, I took the F's. I said to her, don't make me put my credibility on the line. I will let you in if you have some money, A, and B, if you apply yourself. I want to see a B average at the end of the semester. Girl graduated with 3.4.
That's what's up.
So, that's, I don't believe that any of our young people can't learn, but I believe many of them don't have study skills. We have to be able to teach them how to apply themselves. But right now, the federal government is working against our young people, and when their parents have low incomes, and the average income for black families right now is $32,000 compared to $49,000 for white families. Well, what can you do with $32,000? I keep trying to figure that out. But anyway, if the income is $32,000, they're not likely to qualify for a lot of the loans that are available. So how do they really do that? So I know that I hijacked for a minute, but my plea to you all, from a policy perspective, Mark, I'm glad you were in that meeting where you were, because we need your voice there. Not enough of us are on those Department of Education panels, and I'm not going to say something else that I was going to say. I'll leave it alone for the moment. But in any case, from a policy perspective, we need to urge our congresspeople and our president to put more money into HBCUs. We need to urge our congresspeople and our president to make these loan terms more affordable for our young people. We've done it for everybody else, but we haven't done it for young people. Banks can get money, just put your hand out and you get it. But our young people who are our future are not getting it. We see data all the time that young people will do worse than their parents did. And that's partially because when I graduated from college, I had exactly $2,000 in student loan. Now, I graduated from college in the dark age. We didn't have internet. I don't even know how I wrote my doctoral dissertation. I have punch cards. No internet punch cards. Put the punch cards in. I had to put my telephone on the side of the computer. Have the whole telephone on the side of the computer. Oh, it was really deep. But anyway, this is back in the day. If you lost a page, you just had to pray. You didn't have it saved, and no word process and any of that stuff. Oh, it was the dark ages. But in any case, when I graduated, $2,000 worth of loans. Now the average college student graduates with $23,000 worth of loans, and the average black college student with $28,000 worth of loans. So y'all have work to do. You come here to talk about managing money. Let's look at this new generation, and let's talk about ways through public policy we can help them.
And I would piggyback by saying this. How many of you went to HBCUs in here? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. You went to HBCU. How many of you write checks every year to that HBCU? Be honest. See, I write a lot of checks to North Carolina ENT. I should have a bust up there by now.
Well, you should write one for Bennett, and let me tell y'all something. Those of you who did not graduate from HBCUs need to adopt one.
That's right. That's right.
A few dollars every month. Just adopt one. take a, Bennett should be your preferred form of adoption. But I don't know, if you live in Delaware, you might want to make it Delaware State. If you want to lift up Dr. King, you might want to make it Morehouse. On the other hand, for my Spelman sisters, Bennett is the sister school of Morehouse. Proximity, that's not being propensity.
I want to bring Ed in here. Ed, you manage $4 billion. It's hard for most of us in this room to imagine $4 billion. How do we get into that kind of investment? We need to learn how to do it.
Okay, but before I do that, let me just say, first of all, that I operate from the lowest end of the spectrum to the highest end of the spectrum. And I'm so pleased that many of the black churches are adding financial literacy centers. I was approached by the senior pastor of Ebenezer in Atlanta, Reverend Raphael Warnock, used to be my pastor in Baltimore. And he asked for a huge check to start this financial literacy center. And of course, we agreed to do that. We have, in my family, some very uneducated people. We have some people in my family with serious financial problems. One relative came to us a few years ago who was having difficulty paying their bills, and they were in serious default on their mortgage and everything else. This was before the financial crisis. And I said, let's take a look at your budget. And they said, budget? And that seems to be systemic among many uneducated, poor people. So we started with, income, the basics. And I said, no, I need to know after-tax income. And then we went down the list and we made up a budget. And I said, well, it's, very obvious why you're having trouble. Your expenses exceed your income. They're tithing to their church at 10% of gross income. And I said, but you don't have gross income to spend. You only have after-tax income. So we started going through, and basically coming into reality. But that seems to be kind of a common problem, is that many people don't have a budget. They don't know how much money they have after tax take home. They don't really know what their expenditures are. So therefore it's very easy to get out of line. And that's just kind of basic. At the other end, Omarosa, you said you're at Howard Business School?
Yes, I am.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 5 years or so ago, we said, okay, let's do something in the business school. By the way, I got my engineering degree, undergraduate at Howard University.
How many takes you right there?
Well, I'll tell you what. No, seriously, about 5 years ago, we wrote a check for $250,000. And the purpose of that check was not just to write a check to Howard University. We wrote the check to the business school where Omarosa teaches. And if you go down into the trading room at the business school at Howard University, you will see a sign that should say, it did say, I hope it's still there, for a check. Now, I don't know whether they have Goldman Sachs / Brown Capital or Brown Capital / Goldman Sachs trading room. I think it's Brown Capital, Goldman Sachs. There's a trading room for the students to get familiar with Wall Street. We endowed a financial lecture series. Supposedly, every semester, they have a titan from Wall Street come to campus, spend time on campus with the students to expose them to Wall Street. They're supposed to have an investment fund. So a certain amount of money, live, real money, but they have to do presentations, research on companies, basically to get them familiar with the real world capitalistic system in an active way. So,
we're going to be a little pushed for time. They're telling me we need to take questions from the audience. So I'm going to let you wrap up, and I want to ask Ms. Freeman a question about credit, and then take questions from the audience.
Okay, let me wrap up by saying my passion is entrepreneurship. Mark talked about the importance of entrepreneurship. I think that is the way to help our people, our race, succeed. So I'm very passionate about that. But what I found is that many black businesses fail for the same reason that the relative that I talked about was having financial difficulties. They let fancy office space, all of the trappings of success early on in the development of the business get in the way of some basics, and that is that income has to exceed expenses, or the business is not going to survive. I can talk all day about entrepreneurship, but I will stop there, but that is the key to the future of our people.
Yes, Ms. Freeman, I want to bring you in here too right quick. You haven't had a chance to speak. You deal with credit, and that's so important because I just remember being a freshman in college, getting every credit card I thought I was without having a job, no understanding that I was going to be messing my credit up and anything else. You know, how important is it for us to pay close attention to our children's credit and our own credit in today's society?
That is a great question, and it is very important. I came from a family of entrepreneurs. I knew about savings. I had a savings account, but I got into debt when I went to college, and by the time I was a senior, I had 13 credit cards. I was $19,000 in debt. When I graduated, I got a job making $21,000. So you can see I had a financial crisis at an early age. And I learned the hard way about debt. I learned about, how ruthless the creditors can be. I learned about the laws that protect consumers. And so I was able to pass that advice on to others. But what I would say is that credit is so important nowadays. Everyone looks at your credit if you're trying to buy a house, if you're trying to buy a car, if you're trying to get a job. And you have to get insurance, and you have to educate yourself. We can no longer sit back and be paralyzed by fear and put our head in the sand. We have to take action if we want to improve our lives, and especially in our neighborhoods, and especially across the country. We have to make a change because we will continue to be in this never-ending cycle of being the last ones promoted for jobs, being the last ones to become homeowners, being the last ones to have good credit. These are not things that are unattainable. They can be attained, but we have to put in the hard work, the sacrifice, get the knowledge, surround yourself with education, come to panels like this, surround yourself with a support network, role models of people who are financially savvy. Mr. Brown is successful in that. Talk to people, get advice, empower yourself so that you can change your life and change the lives of your children. And you have to start with them as soon as they begin talking. As soon as they can talk, then you need to talk to them about money. Educate them about the value of the dollar. Educate them about credit. Sometimes parents don't want to teach their children, that they're having a financial crisis or they can't pay a bill. And then the children grow up and think that money grows on trees. And so when they experience that crisis, they don't know how to handle it. So we have to empower them with the knowledge, with the tools, so that they can grow into a responsible, fiscally savvy adults.
Well, if you have questions, raise your hand. We're going to send anybody out. You can take your questions. John, I know you wanted to say something before we went to the questions.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. First of all, I think that of everything I've heard, she said the wisest, most amazing thing of the afternoon. Thank you for your comments. It's interesting, sir. We've never met, I don't think. This is truly God's. This is just all God. Coincidence. God's. Ambassador Young says coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous. So I agreed to build a Hope Financial Literacy Empowerment Center on the hollow ground of the King Center.
Wow.
At Ebenezer Church.
Wow.
Little did I know, I'm just putting a chill down my spine. Little did I know that I was going to allow Reverend Raphael Warnock to go to a hero in our community and get him to write a check. And I remember Reverend Raphael Warnock telling me this. He told me the amount. I'm not going to embarrass him. It was a big check. But that check then allowed Raphael Warnock to go to Coca-Cola, which then wrote another check to match it. Isn't God good? Now, this money didn't go to me. It went to the church, and that's perfect. This is not about competition. All boats rise. The beauty of Dr. King was creating an ecosystem where civil rights was respected. And to sit here and to know that you've made that investment and you just did it was the right thing to do. And it created the church a way to lock you into their movement and to make Dr. King relevant to the 21st century. Man, I'm in heaven. So, program. We are on 20 campuses. We are pushing philanthropy as well as financial literacy because most of our HBCUs live hand to mouth with tuition. And what we're saying is every college student put $1 a month up in the 4 years you're there. If the average college campus would collect $36,000, that check is delivered to the president at graduation from that class as a symbol of giving back for that class. And what that does is create a spirit of philanthropy for generations to come so that you have to get in the habit of giving back to your HBCU. And here's the point for everybody to walk away from. 1 out of 4 Americans today, read black, brown people, do not get EITC. The Earned Income Tax Credit, $9 billion goes back to the federal government every year. 1 out of 4 people, you and me, don't collect it now. If you work and you make less than $49,000 a year, the government owes you money. If you have 2 children and you make $25,000 a year at the post office or wherever, the government owes you $4,000 a year. If you've never filed, it's retroactive for 3 years. That's $12,000. You amend your tax returns, file tomorrow, within a month you have $12,000 in your bank account.
That's a small business. You go to business.
You pay your tuition here for your kids at school. That's what you do.
Yeah, may I say one last thing before we close, because this is just really a small world story. The reason my wife and I were in Atlanta in June was to really go to receive an award at the Black Enterprise Entrepreneurs Conference that was held for several days. Derek Dingle is sitting over there, senior editor, Black Enterprise, and stand there. And they called me, kind of 2 coincidences. I'd asked Earl Graves Sr. to be an endorser on the back cover of my book, which he agreed to do. No connection, but they said they wanted me to come to Atlanta because they were going to award me their highest award for an African American business person, which is the A.G. Gaston Award for Lifetime Achievement. Kind of recognizing this is an illustrious group of people on that list over the past decade. I don't know how I got that award. But brings it to Ebenezer, Reverend Warnock. I called Reverend Warnock. As I said, he was our former pastor for 5 years in Baltimore. And I said, we'd be in Atlanta for the Black Enterprise Entrepreneurs Conference, and I was wondering if there's any way that I could do a book signing at Ebenezer. He said, sure. He said, if you come the Sunday before, the 11 o'clock service is the highest attendance, I will make the connection at the end of the service. I will give you the mic for 3 minutes, and I will tell him you will be outside to do a book signing. However, about a half hour before the service, he invited my wife and I into his office. And he talked about this financial literacy center that was going to be built right next door, right on the grounds of the church. And he said, I would like for you and your wife to basically provide some stimulation. So we decided to do it. So we said, we will be the capstone gift, 6-figure type number, if you can get someone else to step up. So within, I think, a week or 2, he got, was it Coca-Cola? And they were there.
Isn't God good?
Let's take some questions.
Hi, I'm Ron Burke with the Washington Informer newspaper, and I think everybody in this panel knows the Washington Informer newspaper, maybe with the exception of you, and the work that we do in putting financial literacy out into the community. As a matter of fact, we're doing our annual financial literacy special section coming up in 2 weeks on October 13th. And I'm a proud Hampton man, and I do write checks. Okay. One of the questions I wanted to ask, with so many people that are unemployed right now, I sell advertising for the Informer. I'm getting more and more people calling me wanting to place ads in the paper for network marketing, because they've lost their job and now they're into prepaid legal or FDI or, it doesn't matter. But the network marketing, I'd like to get the panel's feedback on what they think of network marketing, because essentially they are entrepreneurs, but it doesn't work for everybody. I just wanted to see what you guys think about the network marketing thing. It's growing.
I'll respond to that. I'm very interested in teaching people about sustainable wealth, about wealth that lasts for a long time. If you can just show me 10 people who have made a lot of money and sustained that wealth, then that's something I would endorse. But unfortunately, I don't see those people. I see them make a flash amount of money, and then it dwindles, but they cannot sustain it, and so that's not something that I would ever endorse.
You know, I think that the network marketing has extremely limited opportunities. The person who makes the money is the person who started the network, because all the portions will go to them always. You and everybody in this room has a network, but people's networks are limited. So generally, the way this works, I sell to two, and the two then sell to more, and at some point, you run out of people. You know, and so it just seems to be that take that money and use it for something else. Because you're going to have to invest something. So I'm saying take the money and use it for something else. Save your money over time. If you want to do something with friends, pool your money to start a business. There are so many opportunities out there. I mean, the thing about, some people are making money off this recession.
This is when millionaires are created, though. I mean, that's what people fail to realize.
This is the time to invest.
This is the time to be everything's doing. You could literally, if everybody in this room today said, okay, we're going to all put up $5,000. We can go to the city.
Buy a house on a tree for $5,000.
We can buy, and you can, but this is the thing, this is the key.
$7,000.
This is the key, John. This is the key, though, right? A lot of you would say, well, that $7,000 house is ragged. Tear the house down and keep the land.
That's it.
You hold the land. This is the time that you start buying. It don't matter if it's a shack on the land. Tear the house down, keep the land. The land is going to be of value one day. So that's what you need to be thinking. You need to be thinking about how do we collectively come together. Look, most of us in here, right, are not millionaires. It's some, but not all. So if you're not a millionaire, why don't you get your group together and say, hey, let's work together to create something. This is the time to do it. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, I'd like to know, I had two questions. I mean, how do I understand investing, and how do I make it work? In other words, unfortunately, we as black people, we don't know how to invest because we never been educated.
That's how you start to invest. You can invest in a 529 plan for that child. So, you can start small. You can open up an IRA. You just start with, say, $1,000 and then just $25 a month.
You can open up a $25 savings account in the Mechanics and Farmers Bank or Industrial Bank and start like that.
Right. I mean, it's really easy investing. But then you also have to know why you're investing. I mean, let's take a step back. Why do you want to build wealth? Once you have a plan for your life, a financial plan for your life, then you know how to invest. I mean, we've been investing for our kids' college since they were born, and I'm actually hoping my kid goes to Bennett because she's like the one with all girls, but I'm pushing.
A&T is right across the street.
I just told her. I just told her.
Look, y'all coming off across the street now.
Now, you know it takes a bell to do it well.
And the Credit Card Act, it's one of the few things that have come out of Congress in the last few years that actually benefit consumers. But it gives you a lot more protections. But the best way to protect yourself from any credit card issues is try to use it as little as possible. And if you're going to use a credit card, pay the balance off every month. That's the best way to protect yourself. I would say this to everybody, too. As somebody who grew up in the projects of Chicago, and, my mother was one of these mothers, that whatever she said, that was the law. It wasn't if she said this is what it was, this is what it was. My mother made me believe bankruptcy was a bad word. I believed that till I went to law school and learned what bankruptcy was. And after I learned what bankruptcy was, I said, Mom, bankruptcy is not a bad word. In fact, rich people call it reorganization. They don't call it bankruptcy. and she said, no, they don't know what they're talking about until she got in trouble. And she had to file a reorganization. So I'm saying that to say this. Look, a lot of us have not been taught the right financial literacy. And so we come out on all this money, on all this debt. And it's no shame in filing bankruptcy because it is a reorganization. And I'm not saying that you need to file bankruptcy, but if you have to file bankruptcy, you shouldn't be afraid to file bankruptcy. File a Chapter 13 to save your home. File a Chapter 13 to reorganize your debt. I'm a partner in a law firm that's in Atlanta and Chicago, and I'm so proud of our firm because we all went to law school together. We started off, we put up our money, started together. It was 5 of us. We have 185 attorneys that work for us now. And then 600 other people that we staff. And we staff people who look just like me. And then we turn around and give money to the communities that we're in. And when I say we give money, we give a whole lot of money. And I'm saying that to say this.
what we do is we spend the money to try to get you guys to understand that if you need help, rich people do it every day. They call it reorganization. For some reason, in our community, we think if we file paper, our credit gonna be messed up. If you're in debt, your credit messed up already.
Your credit is bad.
Your credit is bad.
I got bad credit.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Battle, and I live here in Washington right now, but I am a proud graduate of Hampton University. I am a nurse practitioner at a public-based health center, and what I'm intrigued about is that I'm hearing about financial literacy programs. I work in Ward 8 in the district, and we have generational poverty that is there. And I'm very interested in about pursuing a collaboration with a financial literacy or financial dignity program to come in and provide space in a federal qualified health center to do some counseling and guidance, because we do see, I see, perform back to school physicals, colleges, where some of the students are trying to break that cycle of poverty and to educate themselves. And I'm just sitting here thinking this would be a great collaboration. It would be a different venue to host a financial literacy program or counseling, and just kind of would like more information about how to pursue it.
You work for?
I work for Unity Healthcare specifically.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to call you out. I thought you.
A federally qualified health service, community-based health center.
So it's not a federal agency, it's a federally qualified.
Right. We receive a certain, our patients are definitely below the poverty line. Medicaid, direct Medicaid recipients for the children, and if they're older, the adults are on Medicaid, HMO, or underserved, underinsured.
Are you based here in D.C.?
We are based in
Okay.
D.C.
The answer is yes. We will do it. We'll bring our programs there. It'll be free. Jail stand up.
We have an Operation Hope. I know on
He runs the Health Center D.C. We'll make the investment. We'll do it. Won't cost you a dime.
Okay.
Just see it.
And that's such a great idea. Many of our health problems are connected to our financial problems. The amount of stress that people experience because of their financial situation, as well as the fact that many folks can't afford the kind of health care that they need, and that puts stress on them and on the healthcare system. So I think this is a great marriage, and thank you, John, for stepping up.
Next question.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, panel. You're just a wonderful panel. I have an after-school program, Mr. Grant. Is that right? Mr. Bryant?
Mr. Bryant.
I have an after-school program in Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah.
We have middle school children. In Alexandria, 70% of our children are minority children. I figures together.
I'm trying to help him with time now. Are you about to ask? You need services?
Yes, sir.
Where are you at?
I am in Alexandria, Virginia. We have the second highest dropout
Is
rate
that our
in Northern Virginia.
Yes. No. Yes. We'll do it.
Oh, thank you.
Raise your hand.
Thank you.
Free.
All right, let's go to the next question.
Thank you.
And it'll be a reception in here from 6. It's starting at 6 o'clock to honor Dick Gregory and the lovely Amaro. So make sure you stick around for that.
Hi, how you doing?
Good.
I think this is a great panel, first of all. My name is Garrett Luck. I'm from San Diego, and I'm a member of the neighborhood. Yeah, I'm your family from Chicago, too.
Oh, yes. Chi-town, baby. Chi-town.
Yeah. So I'm a member of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. I'm not sure what you're saying to families that are struggling with their homes right now, that are actually not making the payment and they're still staying in the house. What type of financial literacy are you offering those families that don't know what to do because they're not hearing from the mortgage companies and all that good stuff? Are you guys actually giving them any information or any guidance or what's going on with that situation?
888-372 HOPE. We've restructured $450 million of mortgages, modified and or restructured. The cost of the consumer is zero. We have no known complaints about the work. We involve the consumer in their solutions and get the consumer on the phone with their bank. We have a volunteer banker or one of my staffers who works with them as their advocate on the phone with the bank. The bank can't blow us off. So we go back and forth because we know as much as the bank knows, and we've been successful in restructuring and modifying just under $500 million in mortgages. About 150,000 people have gone through the system. So 888-388-388-HOPE. 888-388-HOPE is
Okay, I'm familiar with that as well. I think the last thing is that I don't know if they're being told that with that BK thing that you were talking about, 2 years after BK and 3 years after foreclosure, they can actually be homeowners again,
That's
considered
exactly,
as a first-time home buyer.
That's exactly
That's
right.
what they need to do.
And I'm going to tell you, when you talk about this from a legislative point of view, and I was supposed to be on the last panel, and I came in here very late because I had a meeting with the president. And one of the things that I was talking to him about, because he's from Illinois, because he's from Chicago, and because he is an attorney like myself, we were talking about the modification of the bankruptcy laws. Because right now, I can go in and you own a home and you have 3 investment properties, a boat, a yacht, whatever. I can go in and strip down the price of those investment homes and that yacht to what it's worth today. So even if you got $1 million contract, if it's only worth $50,000, guess what? You only owe $50,000. But I can't do that with your primary residence, where you live in. And the reason the law is like that is because, you know what? Only the rich folks will have them investment properties and yachts and everything like that. It's the poor people who need to be able to get their mortgages remodified in the bankruptcy code. And that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is when you think about what's happening in this country, it's a lot of legislative stuff that could be addressed from an educational point of view, from a bankruptcy point of view, and from a consumer point of view that could save individual homes and save our communities. But until we organize and start making our voices heard and let them understand that we do understand legislation and that we're not just going to vote, that's when we'll see the changes start really starting.
In the interest of time, I'll ask the last question.
Wait, no. This is has been standing up. We really need to address it.
Thank you. The panel has been excellent, and mine is really just a comment, and I am going to buy the book.
Thank you.
To Mr. Bryant, I'm with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, and I'm a realtor. We're all in this family. You have provided for our organization. We have a Youth Academy of Entrepreneurship and Mentorship that you've been doing. Yes. And your organization, I now know why you're so blessed, because you give so much. And I want you to be proud of that. Good. I wanted to take this time to personally thank you for everything you're doing for our children that come across the country from about 82 chapters. They were in New Orleans. We have pictures. You probably have seen them. We did a Habitat for Humanity so they could see what service is all about and the education.
Landon Taylor Topic, I know the guy from Lionel Savage Topic.
With that was all taken care of for us, so I wanted to personally thank you. And for all of you on the panel, real estate, all the things you're talking about is what our organization does. We're now starting to focus more regionally, and of course, we're concerned about what's going on in the community. So I'm going to extend an invitation to all of you to work with us as we focus more on the community, on the ground, and our programs and initiatives. I'll give you all my cards, and I'll be reaching out to you to find some ways for you guys to support us and help us on the ground as we move across the country. Thank you.
Before we close, let me ask your last question, because I'm going to have to sneak out. If you have questions about the Executive MBA program at Howard that I described, my Facebook is just facebook.com/Omarosa, and I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/Omarosa, and I will send you that information. We have funding so that we can take care, I believe that they're providing several scholarships for people who have been in the workforce. I just wanted to tell you.
In closing, Brother Mark Morial discussed the fact that African Americans are at the top of the list with respect to consumerism. And he also talked about reinvesting in our neighborhoods, yet it's almost a conflict of interest, right? Because we're talking about saving and actually keeping our dollars in our pocket. Can you explain the paradigm and how to kind of sift through that and what you mean by investing in our neighborhoods, but also being accountable for the finances that you do have and not overspending?
I think what he was saying is, for example, if you've got to do some home project on your house, one of the things my husband and I do is that we get bids, because that's the smart thing to do, get bids. So we make sure that we include an African-American person in that bid process. And every time we've done that, they've actually won our business. So we have them come come in, they do an assessment, and almost 100% of the time, we've chosen an African American person. The thing is, you have to do both. You have to save, and then you have to invest. If you don't save, then when hard times come, then you use debt. So you do both. And you can start off with $1. 50 cents to saving, 50 cents to investing. You have to do both. And then if you do that, you can send your kid to college without any debt if you start when they are first born. I mean, how many cars do we own in our lifetime? The average American owns anywhere from 3 to 4 cars in their lifetime. The average price of a car these days is about $28,000. If you cut that car down to 1.5 or just keep it for 10 or 15 years, you've already saved half of the cost, or at least a year worth of tuition for your child. So it really starts in your home. And financial literacy, it's great to have these community programs, but it really does start in your home. You, the only ones that can teach your children financial values. We teach our children to tithe. I'm not going to go to a financial literacy program necessarily that's going to teach that to my child. And so it has to start there. If you have an education program for your students, you ought to have a program for their parents, because that information is not going to stick if the parents aren't there to enforce it. So it's a marriage of both. And as you leave here, just think about how you handle your own money. In a room like this size, probably half of you are living beyond your paycheck. So just start there, and then you can support these kind of programs, and we will all be in a better position financially. We can send our kids to bed without any debt. They can own their businesses, and we would all be better.
In closing, we're going to get ready to wrap this up. In closing. I just want to say this. It's been an honor to moderate this panel. These panelists are great. Give them a round of applause. We'll be honoring them in here. It's a reception that starts at 6, right? 6 o'clock, right here in the same room. And I'll say this to you guys. Everybody in this room, I challenge you to do one thing. I made this challenge to myself 5 years ago. It's funny because 5 years ago, I was not financially aware as I am today. I started making some good money, and I started buying a whole bunch of stuff. Anything I thought I wanted, I was buying. Yeah, give me them Gucci's with the fur on the collar around the $10,000, give me 2 of them. I was just losing my mind, but I realized something. I started seeing all the debt that was coming in. I was like, I'm making this money, and I'm broke. I had more money when I wasn't making no money. And so what I did was I said, you know what? I'm getting rid of all my credit. I have one credit card that I carry with me, an American Express card. And I use that card because at the end of the month, I have to pay it off. I have to pay it off. I don't carry anything else. All right? And I challenge you to do the same thing. I challenge you to say, look, I'm going to pick one card. And in fact, I would even go so far and say, use your check and debit card and put it, you know, I'm getting so bad that I've opened up a separate account that's just this my money I can afford to spend this month. Right here. This is my savings right here, and this is my emergency right here. I got a savings and emergency. So I challenge you to start thinking about money like that, because in our community, this is the way we think about money. Big money, no money at all. Big money, no money at all. We don't think about little money. And you know who gave us the perfect example of thinking about little money? My president, Barack Obama. See, let me show y'all what the brilliance of his campaign was, right? Let me show you the brilliance of this man. He did what nobody else could do. He said, look, they want to give me $1,500, $2,500 to sit down and eat dinner with me. I tell you what, my people can't afford that. Just give me $5. $5. Because if 1 million people give me $5, I got $5 million. Now, I'm going to tell you something else that was brilliant about that. Many people gave money to a political campaign for the first time in their life. And that made him be connected to them, right? You can do that same thing in your household. If you just take $5 a day and start saving, $5 a day, $5 a day. At the end of the year, if you save $5 a day, that'll be $1,500 a year. And you can start by, you know what? How many of y'all go to Starbucks every morning to get coffee or buy breakfast? Don't drink your boss's coffee that's free. Save that money. Save that money. Save that money and start putting it up, and you'll be surprised how quickly that money will add up. If you start taking your lunch to work, you will be quick. You'll be amazed how much money you'll start saving. You'll be like, man, I got this extra $2,500. I need to do something with it. You know what? You invest it. That's what you do with it. So I hope that you guys will take this back to your communities, back to your loved ones, and start thinking about not just what you want, but what you need. Because it's a difference. It's a difference than wanting and needing. So thank you guys so much.
cigarette a day? Smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, all you do is $6,000 a year.
If you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day, you're not going to live long enough.